Life is a battlefield, and every person fights their own war. Some battles are visible, struggles with career, relationships, or financial hardships, while others are silent, hidden deep within our hearts. There are moments when failure seems like the end, when dreams shatter, and hope begins to fade. But here's the truth: failure is not the opposite of success, it is a step toward it. Think about the legends we admire today. Every single one of them faced setbacks. What made them different? They refused to give up. They understood that defeat is temporary, but surrender is permanent. If you've ever felt like giving up, like the world is against you, like nothing is going right, then this message is for you. Because today, we will explore the most powerful lesson life has to offer: never give up. Stay with me, because this might be the turning point of your journey. Life is a battlefield, and every person fights their own war. Some battles are visible, struggles with career, relationships, or financial hardships, while others are silent, hidden deep within our hearts. There are moments when failure seems like the end, when dreams shatter, and hope begins to fade. But here's the truth: failure is not the opposite of success, it is a step toward it. Think about the legends we admire today. Every single one of them faced setbacks. What made them different? They refused to give up. They understood that defeat is temporary, but surrender is permanent. If you've ever felt like giving up, like the world is against you, like nothing is going right, then this message is for you. Because today, we will explore the most powerful lesson life has to offer: never give up. Stay with me, because this might be the turning point of your journey. Ramesh was a bright child, full of dreams and ambition. But when he failed his 10th grade exams, everything changed. His relatives mocked him, his teachers lost faith in him, and even his parents, though supportive, couldn't hide their disappointment. Society had already labeled him a failure. For weeks, Ramesh locked himself in his room, feeling lost and ashamed. He thought about quitting school altogether. "Maybe I'm just not meant for success," he told himself. But then, something changed. One night, he came across a biography of Albert Einstein, who had been called a slow learner in school but later became one of the greatest minds in history. This struck a chord with him. If Einstein could struggle and succeed, why couldn't he? With renewed determination, Ramesh decided that failure wouldn't define him. His response to failure would. Instead of feeling sorry for himself, he took action. He didn't just repeat the 10th grade, he studied smarter this time. He analyzed his weak points, changed his study habits, and sought guidance from mentors who truly believed in him. The next year, he passed with flying colors. But his journey didn't stop there. Inspired by technology and entrepreneurship, he pursued a career in software development. He started learning coding through free online resources, working tirelessly day and night. Within a few years, he launched his own software company, one that initially struggled but eventually gained massive success. Years later, the same boy who once failed 10th grade became the CEO of a billion-dollar tech company. The same relatives who once mocked him now took pride in his achievements. The same society that called him a failure now celebrated his success. Failure is never the end, it's only the beginning. Your response to failure is what truly matters. If Ramesh had given up after failing 10th grade, he would have never discovered his potential. But instead, he turned failure into a stepping stone for greatness. So, the next time life knocks you down, remember this: it's not about how many times you fail. It's about how many times you rise again. In a small town in China, a young man named Jack Ma grew up with big dreams but faced constant rejection. He wasn't the smartest student. He failed primary school twice and middle school 3 times. Even when he applied to university, he was rejected multiple times. But that was just the beginning of his struggles. After finally completing his education, Jack applied for 30 different jobs and was rejected from every single one. Even KFC opened a branch in his town, hiring 24 people out of 25 applicants. Jack was the only one rejected. Most people would have given up at this point. After all, how much rejection can a person take? But Jack Ma had something different, an unbreakable spirit. He refused to let failure define him. Instead of giving up, he looked for opportunities where others saw dead ends. Jack developed an interest in the internet at a time when most people in China didn't even know what it was. He saw its potential and decided to create an online business. But there was one problem. He knew nothing about coding, technology, or business. However, instead of focusing on what he lacked, he focused on what he could learn. With a small team, Jack founded Alibaba, an online marketplace for businesses. In the beginning, investors laughed at him. They thought his idea was foolish, saying, "No one in China will shop online." But Jack believed in his vision and kept pushing forward. There were many struggles, financial difficulties, market crashes, and competitors trying to crush him. But Jack never gave up. He kept improving his business, adapting to challenges, and believing that the internet would change the world. Fast forward to today, and Alibaba is one of the biggest e-commerce companies in the world, worth over $500 billion. The man who was rejected from 30 jobs is now one of the richest and most influential entrepreneurs in the world. Rejection is not failure, it is just redirection. Every rejection, every failure, every setback is pushing you toward the path you are truly meant for. Jack Ma's success wasn't built on talent or intelligence, it was built on perseverance. So, the next time someone tells you, "You're not good enough," remember Jack Ma's story. Success isn't about how many times you get rejected, it's about how many times you keep going. A young girl named Emily had dreams of becoming a professional athlete. She loved running, jumping, and competing in every school race. But at the age of 12, her life changed forever. A devastating car accident left her with multiple fractures in both legs. When she woke up in the hospital, the doctors gave her heartbreaking news. "You will never walk again." Emily's world shattered. The thought of spending the rest of her life in a wheelchair was unbearable. She cried for days, refusing to accept reality. Every time she tried to move, unbearable pain reminded her of what she had lost. But then, something changed. One evening, her mother sat beside her and said, "The doctors can say what they want, but only you can decide your future. If you believe you will walk again, then fight for it." Those words ignited a fire inside Emily. She decided that she wouldn't accept her fate without a fight. She would walk again, no matter how painful, no matter how difficult. Her journey to recovery was brutal. The first time she tried to move her legs, she screamed in pain. Physiotherapy was exhausting, but she never missed a single session. Every day, she pushed herself beyond her limits, refusing to accept defeat. After months of relentless struggle, something miraculous happened. Emily moved her toes. It was a small movement, but for her, it was proof that she still had a chance. With renewed determination, she kept pushing forward. 1 year later, against all odds, Emily took her first steps. But she didn't stop there. She trained harder than ever before, strengthening her legs, rebuilding her muscles, and slowly regaining her lost speed. 5 years after her accident, the girl who was told she would never walk again crossed the finish line at a national athletics championship. No one can decide your limits except you. If Emily had accepted what the doctor said, she would have never walked again. But she proved that the mind is more powerful than any obstacle. Whenever life tells you, "You can't do it," remember Emily's story. The only real failure is giving up. If you refuse to quit, nothing can stop you. David was living the perfect life. He had built a successful business from scratch, owned a beautiful house, and had a happy family. Everything seemed to be going in his favor, until one day, disaster struck. A sudden economic crash wiped out his entire business. His investments failed, his company went bankrupt, and within months, he lost everything he had worked for. His house was taken away, and he had no money left to support his family. From a millionaire, he became broke overnight. For days, David felt completely shattered. The world saw him as a failure, and for the first time, he started believing it too. The weight of losing everything crushed his confidence. He thought about giving up on life. But then, he looked at his family, his wife, his children, and realized that giving up wasn't an option. He had built success once before, and if he had done it once, he could do it again. But this time, he would be smarter, stronger, and more determined than ever. With no money and no resources, David started again from the ground up. He took a small job just to survive. It was humiliating for a man who once owned a multi-million-dollar company, but he swallowed his pride and focused on rebuilding. Every day, after work, he spent hours learning new business strategies, reading books, and networking with successful people. He analyzed his past mistakes, realizing that failure wasn't the end, it was a lesson. After months of struggle, David launched a new business, this time with a smarter approach. He applied everything he had learned from his past failure. The road wasn't easy, but he persisted. Within 5 years, his new business became even bigger than his first one. The man who had lost everything became a millionaire again, but this time, even wiser, failure isn't permanent unless you quit. David lost everything, but he refused to let that define him. Instead, he used his failure as a lesson, came back stronger, and rebuilt his life. No matter how big your failures are, you can always rise again. The key is to learn from your mistakes, adapt, and never give up. Success is not about never falling, it's about always getting back up. John always dreamed of becoming a great writer. From a young age, he would spend hours crafting stories, believing that one day his books would inspire the world. But when he finally finished his first novel and sent it to publishers, he was met with rejection after rejection. One rejection letter read, "Your writing lacks market potential." Another simply said, "Not good enough." Over the next 12 years, John submitted his work to publishers again and again, only to be rejected every single time. Most people would have quit after the first few rejections. Many would have stopped after a year or two. But John refused to give up. He didn't see failure as a sign to stop. He saw it as a challenge to improve. Instead of feeling sorry for himself, he worked harder. He studied the writing styles of successful authors, attended writing workshops, and refined his storytelling skills. Each rejection wasn't a failure, it was a lesson. After 12 years of struggle, something incredible happened. A small publishing house finally accepted his book. And within a few years, it became a global bestseller. The same publishers who once rejected him were now offering him massive deals. John didn't just become successful. He became one of the most famous writers in the world. His books sold millions of copies, inspired generations, and were even turned into movies. Success doesn't come to those who quit. It comes to those who refuse to give up. If John had stopped after a few rejections, the world would have never seen his brilliance. Every great success story is built on persistence. If you are facing rejection, failure, or disappointment right now, don't stop. Keep improving, keep learning, and keep pushing forward. Because the only way to truly fail is to quit. The world has seen countless extraordinary individuals, people who defied the odds, shaped history, and left behind legacies that continue to inspire us. Though they are no longer among us, their names, their struggles, and their wisdom echo through time, reminding us that greatness is not about living forever, it's about creating something that does. Born into a humble family, Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam had no privileges, no wealth, and no special connections. But what he did have was an unbreakable spirit and an insatiable hunger for knowledge. Despite financial struggles, he pursued his education relentlessly, eventually becoming a scientist, a visionary, and the President of India. His work in space and missile technology transformed India into a powerful nation in science. But what made him truly legendary was not just his scientific achievements, it was his wisdom, humility, and the way he inspired millions of young minds. Even after reaching the highest office in the country, he remained a simple man, always emphasizing that dreams are not what you see in sleep. Dreams are those that don't let you sleep. Imagine spending 27 years in prison for fighting against injustice. Most people would have lost hope, given up, or sought revenge. But Nelson Mandela was different. When he finally walked free, he did not carry hatred, he carried forgiveness and unity. Mandela's struggle against apartheid made him a global symbol of peace, resilience, and leadership. Despite facing unimaginable hardships, he never stopped believing in justice. His message was simple. It always seems impossible until it's done. And he proved that even the most impossible battles can be won with courage, patience, and an unshakable will. From being an adopted child and a college dropout to building one of the greatest tech empires in history, Steve Jobs' journey was nothing short of extraordinary. He didn't just create Apple. He revolutionized technology with his bold vision. The iPhone, Mac, and iPad were not just gadgets. They were symbols of innovation and perfection. Jobs was fired from his own company, but instead of giving up, he came back stronger. His philosophy was simple. Stay hungry, stay foolish. His relentless pursuit of excellence proved that true success is not about avoiding failure, but about rising every time you fall. At just 32 years old, Bruce Lee left the world, but his impact still lives on. He wasn't just a martial artist, he was a philosopher, an innovator, and a force of nature. Despite racial discrimination and countless obstacles, he broke barriers and introduced the world to martial arts like never before. His belief? Be like water. Adapt, evolve, and never let anything limit you. His discipline, speed, and mental strength made him a legend, not just in fighting, but in life itself. At just 32 years old, Bruce Lee left the world, but his impact still lives on. He wasn't just a martial artist, he was a philosopher, an innovator, and a force of nature. Despite racial discrimination and countless obstacles, he broke barriers and introduced the world to martial arts like never before. His belief? Be like water. Adapt, evolve, and never let anything limit you. His discipline, speed, and mental strength made him a legend, not just in fighting, but in life itself. These legends may no longer walk among us, but their words, actions, and achievements continue to light the path for millions. They prove that life is not about how long you live. It's about what you do with the time you have. So ask yourself, what will your legacy be? Will you let challenges break you, or will you rise like these legends did? Because the greatest tribute you can give them is not just remembering their stories, it's applying their lessons in your own life. Life is not a straight road. It is filled with twists, turns, and obstacles that test your strength, patience, and determination. At times, you will face failures so crushing that you may feel like quitting. But remember this, every great success story was once a story of struggle, rejection, and perseverance. Think about it. What if Jack Ma had accepted rejection and never started Alibaba? What if Emily had believed the doctors and never walked again? What if David had given up after losing everything? The answer is simple. The world would have never known their greatness. But they didn't quit. They refused to accept failure as the final chapter of their lives. They pushed forward through pain, doubt, and fear until success had no choice but to bow before them. Right now, you might be facing challenges that seem impossible. You might feel like the world is against you, that no matter how hard you try, nothing is working. But here's the truth: the darkest nights produce the brightest stars. Your struggles are not here to break you. They are here to shape you into someone unstoppable. Every rejection is making you stronger. Every failure is teaching you something valuable. Every setback is setting you up for an even greater comeback. You can either give up and let life defeat you, or you can stand up and fight back. You can either accept failure or use it as fuel to create a legendary success story. Remember, the most successful people in history were not the ones who never failed. They were the ones who never stopped trying. So, the next time life knocks you down, look in the mirror and say, "Fire. I will rise again. I will not give up. My story is not over yet." Fire. Because the greatest victories are born from the toughest battles. And if you refuse to quit, one day, you will look back at your struggles and realize they were the reason you became unstoppable.